I will discuss library classification, concept, need and purpose. Before we know about classification, it would be appropriate to know something about knowledge. What is knowledge? The word knowledge means an assured belief or that which is known. In the process of knowing, there are two parties, one the knower and the other knowee. Impact between the two gives birth to knowledge. The knower is always man and the knowee is made up of entities, that is, things or concepts. When man knows the entities, knowee is established. As man knew more and more about entities, knowledge grew. In order that the already gathered knowledge be not lost to posterity, it was recorded and stored. Due to three great features of man, that is, comparatively longer age than most animals, living of 3 generations in a family within society, and the ability to reason and analysis, he has been able to increase his stock of knowledge. It is difficult to examine if all that is known by the 20th century forms a greater part of a tiny little segment of all that could ever be known. However, in view of the vast field yet to be discovered, one can safely say that what we know by today is a very tiny fraction of all the entities known and unknown. The universe of knowledge is limited due to our limited sources. Before we discuss it, let us have certain examples of knowers and knowees. Knowers are Aristotle, Newton, Keats, Queen Victoria, Gandhi, etc. And knowees have two parts. One is table, penicillin, stars, plants, books, etc. And on the other, democracy, relativity, love, ecology, non-violence, etc. Man is the subject and the entities, that is thing and the concept, are the objects in knowledge. Man can achieve knowledge only in certain directions. He can examine nature, the self and the society. He cannot look into any other dimension. Therefore, due to this limitation of man, knowledge is limited to 3 spheres. They are man and nature, natural sciences, things and concepts therein, man and self, humanities, things and concepts therein, man and society, social sciences, things and concepts therein. Universe of knowledge, we can divide it into 3 main segments. One is natural science, man and nature. Another is humanities, man and self. And the third is social sciences, man and society. Now we will discuss what is knowledge. The word classification is derived from a Latin word classis. In ancient Rome, citizens used to be grouped according to the degree of their wealth. Such groups were called classes. The procedure necessary in forming groups is called classifying, and the result is classification. It may be interesting to know that all of us are involved consciously or unconsciously in the process of classification as part of our daily life. Consider the example of a vegetable seller. He does not mix all sorts of vegetables together, but the first thing he does in the morning is to separate them by type, shape and size and keep them in different baskets. Even in one basket, he places the best one on top facing the public and the inferior ones hidden underneath. Is this vegetable seller aware of what he is doing? Educated people in society do classify their objects consciously as it helps them in their own work. Suppose the vegetable seller puts all the vegetables in one heap. What inconvenience will he and the customer face? If somebody wants 1 kilogram of potatoes, the grocer will have to sort out the potatoes first and then weigh 1 kilogram of them Meanwhile, the customer has to wait. One can imagine that the bigger the heap, the more is the sorting time. If you replace vegetables with books in a library, the vegetable seller with the librarian, and the customer with the reader, the importance of classification in a library will at once be understood. Classification is the result of the arrangement of various classes. It means putting similar entities together and separating unlike entities. This is done by examining what makes entities appear similar or unlike. The feature of or qualities or attributes which the entities possess may be similar among themselves or may be different from one another. Characteristics are used as the basis of finding out the likeness or unlikeness between entities. Classification is used for grouping of facts or phenomena. It is often taken as a mental grouping as against physical or actual assortment. We even classify such things which are neither before us nor are they seen by us. Classification is also a grouping of some purpose. The purpose may be general or special. The latter is mostly for practical use. Classification is the means by which our mind identifies any given object and distinguishes one object from another. In simplest statement, classification is the putting together of similar things, or more fully described, it is arranging of things according to likeness and unlikeness. It is the sorting and grouping of things. Now we will discuss kinds of classification. According to tradition, there are two kinds of classification. One is natural classification and the other is artificial classification. A natural classification is supposed to be one that exhibits the inherent properties of things classified. It depends on homology, the likeness that resides in the structure and function of the entities classified. Artificial classification is based on analogy, where things are classified by their external likeness and apparent purpose like color, shape, etc. In addition to above, there are many other points of difference between the so-called natural and artificial classification. According to Phillips, natural classification is one which groups or separates a series of individuals according to the degree of their fundamental likeness or unlikeness. Artificial classification is one which groups or separates a series of individuals according to some external or accidental likeness or unlikeness. The existence of natural and artificial classification may be valid from the point of view of taxonomy, but this is doubtful now. As far as classification of knowledge is concerned, there are no such kinds. To sum up, it can be said that natural classification is one which exhibits the inherent properties of the things classified, and artificial classification is one in which accidental characteristic is used and which is not fundamental to the qualities of things to be classified. Now we will discuss features of classification. First is it has an intrinsic quality of human beings. Every individual in society is involved in classification. Educated people classify their ideas and objects consciously, while the uneducated do the same unconsciously. In fact, classification is a natural instinct in man. As Richardson says, classification made ape a man. Animals perhaps have little or no classifying power. It is this power of classifying objects and ideas that has gone parallel in the evolution of man from animals. As a process of grouping and division is another feature. Ordinarily, classification is the act of grouping like things together. All the members of a group or class share at least one characteristic. The process of classification may be accomplished in two ways. Now we will see grouping process. Classification may arrange individual objects or ideas into groups according to their degree of likeness and combine these groups into still larger groups till a comprehensive group is formed, as is shown in the picture. Another is division process. In another way, classification means division of a group into subgroups, which may further be divided and subdivided till no more division is possible, as is seen in the table. Now, importance of classification. Classification is a process of grouping. Grouping is done on the basis of certain characteristics. Third, classification facilitates arrangement of things of their groups in some logical order. Fourth, it assists in easy location of items from the collection, and classification saves the sorting time. And the last process of classification is natural in human beings. One cannot perform the act of reasoning unless one possesses the power of classifying. We can go to the extent of saying that in order to distinguish objects, we should be able to visualize or see them together. There is a need for better understanding and appreciation of classification so that this area could be developed further for the benefit of mankind. Now we will discuss library classification. In ordinary classification, we deal with the arrangement of ideas and objects in a systematic order, but in library classification, we are concerned with documents, and the aim is to arrange these in the most helpful and permanent order. The term document refers to printed, handwritten, or engraving material, including books, periodicals, publications, microfilms, photographs, gramophone record, library. To judge the value of classification to libraries, let us examine the possible approaches that are generally made by the readers to the library collection. Although it is difficult to generalize the interest of reader, certain types that are most familiar to librarians may be identified. Now we will be discussing some definitions of library classification. According to Sayers, library classification is the arrangement of books on shelves or description of them in manner which is most useful to those who read. The emphasis is on usefulness so that users can search for books without difficulty. Another definition by Mann says, classification is the arranging of things according to likeness and unlikeness. It is the sorting and grouping of things, but in addition, classification of books is a knowledge classification with adjustments made necessary by the physical form of books. Classification is thus a process which brings together like documents and separate unlike documents. According to H. Bliss, there are indeed two kinds of classification. On the one hand, the logical, natural and scientific. On the other hand, the practical, the arbitrary, the purposive. But for the library classification, we should join these two hands. The two purposes should be combined to make the classification conform to the scientific and educational organization of knowledge is to make it more practical. According to W.C. Berwick Sayers, the knowledge classification is the basis of library classification. However, to be practical, such scheme must have an order of classes or subjects that is useful for the readers of the library. According to E.W. Holme, all classification divided into groups, mechanical and philosophical. Library classification or book classification is concerned with the arrangement of documents in the library in such a manner that the readers are best served. Therefore, it requires a detailed scheme of classification in which knowledge is divided into broad areas, which are again subdivided into subjects or main classes. Each subject and its divisions, along with their specific aspect, is represented by a system of numbers called notation. It is this notation that helps in the arrangement of documents on the shelf. Now we'll be discussing need for library classification. Whenever there is a collection of documents, there is need to arrange them in a helpful order, because it is not possible to locate the required documents in a collection unless they are so arranged systematically. In a small library, a librarian may be able to lay his hands on a required document immediately, but particular subject or subject group in libraries where the number of books generally exceed many thousands and where users mostly have to find the required documents by themselves, the arrangement of documents must satisfy certain requirements. Experience has further shown that majority of readers, even when they approach books by the name of their respective authors or titles, are generally interested in the subject matter of the books, and the only arrangement that satisfies their need to the maximum is therefore the subject arrangement. Purpose of library classification. According to W.C. Berwick Sayers, the foundation of the library is the book. The foundation of librarianship is classification. As classification is applied in libraries, it brings like books together, it saves time in finding them, it reveals the weakness or strength of the collection, it makes systematic revision of and addition to stock possible. It brings like books together. Classification arranges books in order most convenient to the readers and the librarians. Readers should find all the related books together, and librarians should spend minimum time and energy in locating the documents. Classification brings together all the books on the same subject. Not only that, books on different branches of the subject is also collected in such a way that their mutual relationship is clearly shown. This type of grouping or documents may result into chance contact of an otherwise unknown book, thus arousing the interest of the readers, which is one of the ideals of library profession. Another purpose of the classification is it saves time. Classification is a great time-saving device for readers as well as librarians, and thus fulfills the demand of the fourth law of library science. If the other orders like alphabetical or chronological are to be followed, all the books dealing with the subject will get scattered throughout the collection. As the most general approach of a reader is by subject, and order other than classified will be wildering and time consuming. In short, arrangement by subject, a natural consequence of library classification, saves a lot of time of readers as well as of staff by bringing together all the related documents. Another purpose is it helps in circulation work. Classification is frequently used for arranging issues, records in a circulation section. It also helps in maintaining the statistics of issue. Every day when the transaction in the circulation section are over, the borrower's cards along with the book cards are arranged in a classified order. The numbers of books issued in different subjects are then easily counted, and each day's statistics are maintained in a book. Thus it assists the librarian to know the quantum of demand